The Black Hollow Asylum stood at the edge of the forgotten town, wrapped in shadows and silence. For decades, the building had been abandoned, left to rot, covered in vines, its windows shattered like the empty eyes of a corpse. But the legends never faded. Locals whispered stories of patients who were never released, of doctors who experimented on minds until reality itself fractured. Some say the asylum is a place where time stops, where the past lingers, and the dead are never truly gone. No one who entered ever came back the same. Tonight, 4 friends stood before its rusted gates. Daniel, the fearless leader. Mark, the skeptic. Lisa, the one who always believed in the paranormal. And Sarah, who had a bad feeling from the start. "This is insane," Sarah muttered, wrapping her arms around herself. The air was colder here. Too cold. "Oh, come on," Mark grinned, stepping closer to the gate. "It's just an old building. What's the worst that could happen?" Lisa hesitated. "People say those who go in hear voices." Daniel rolled his eyes. "Then let's see if they're right." With a heavy creak, the iron gates swung open on their own. The cold night air whispered through, carrying a single chilling message. The arrival and the first signs. The moment they stepped through the rusted gates, the air changed. It was too quiet. No crickets. No wind. Just an eerie, unnatural silence. Black Hollow Asylum loomed before them, its towering structure wrapped in vines and decay. The windows were shattered, dark gaps that seemed to watch them like empty eyes. The front doors stood slightly open. Lisa hugged herself. "This place, it feels wrong." Mark laughed. "It's just an old building. You're letting the stories get to you." Sarah didn't reply. Her stomach twisted with unease. Daniel pulled out his phone. "All right, let's get this on camera. Our own paranormal investigation." He turned on the flashlight and began recording. "Welcome to the legendary Black Hollow Asylum. Local legend says people come in here but never leave the same. So tonight, we find out the truth." They stepped inside. The moment they crossed the threshold, the doors slammed shut behind them. A gust of icy air swept through the hallway, carrying a faint whisper. "Finally, you're here." Inside the asylum. The hallway stretched before them, lined with peeling wallpaper and flickering overhead lights. Rust-covered wheelchairs sat abandoned along the walls. Old patient charts littered the ground. A faint humming noise seemed to echo from somewhere deeper inside. Lisa shivered. "This place, it's like it's still alive." Sarah's eyes darted around nervously. "Let's just take a quick look and go." But Daniel grinned. "We're just getting started." He pointed his flashlight down the hall. The beam flickered. Their phones glitched, the screens distorting into static for a brief second. Then, a shadow moved. A dark figure at the end of the hall, just standing there. Lisa grabbed Mark's arm. "Did you see that?" Mark squinted. "See what?" The hallway was empty. Daniel shook his head. It was probably just a trick of the light. But Lisa wasn't convinced. As they moved deeper inside, the air grew colder. The walls seemed tighter, like they were closing in. And then, they heard it. A soft giggle. A child's voice, echoing through the hall. Sarah froze. "There were no children here," she whispered. Mark forced a chuckle. "Probably just the wind." Then, something ran past them. A blur of movement. A shadow too quick to be human. Daniel whipped the camera around, but there was nothing. The giggle came again. This time, closer. Lisa's breathing quickened. "We need to leave." Daniel ignored her. "No way. We're getting this on film." Let's check out the patient rooms. And every door in the hallway was now wide open. Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. That wasn't like that before. Lisa staggered back. Something is here. And then, from one of the dark rooms, a voice called out. Help me. The first signs of something wrong. The group stood frozen. The voice had been too clear. Too human. Daniel lifted his flashlight, shining it into the doorway. Inside was an old patient's room. A rusted bed frame. A broken four-stand. The walls were covered in scratches, long, deep claw marks. Lisa's voice shook. No. No. We should not be here. But Daniel stepped inside. Hello. Silence. Then, the flashlight flickered violently. And for a single second, a face appeared. A man, staring directly at them. Wide, empty eyes. A gaping mouth, twisted in pain. The light cut out. When it flickered back on, he was gone. Lisa screamed. I'm leaving. She spun, running back toward the main hall. But the hallway was different now. The doors were gone. The walls stretched longer than before. Sarah clutched Mark's arm. The asylum is changing. Lisa turned, panic filling her eyes. How do we get out? Daniel swallowed hard. We keep moving. They continued down the hall. Their footsteps echoed unnaturally. And then, a loud, scraping noise filled the air. Like nails dragging across the walls. The sound came from everywhere. The hallway grew darker. Mark turned, his breath shallow. Something's coming. Sarah shook her head. No. I think it's been here the whole time. And then, just ahead of them, a shadow peeled itself from the wall. It was waiting. The doors that vanish. The hallway felt wrong. It had stretched longer than before, or had it always been this way? Lisa's breath was shallow. I swear the exit was right there a second ago. Sarah grabbed her wrist. We should go back. But when they turned around, the way they came was gone. The hallway had changed. The doors that lined the walls had disappeared. The peeling wallpaper bled into endless, dark walls. Mark ran ahead, feeling along the smooth surface. No, this is impossible. Daniel tightened his grip on his camera. It's just an illusion. We're panicking. But then, a loud thud. Something slammed into the wall behind them. Lisa screamed. What was that? Silence. Then, scraping. Long, slow, deliberate. Something was dragging against the walls. Daniel aimed his flashlight down the corridor. The light flickered. For a brief moment, something moved just out of sight, a shadow with no body. And then, footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Coming toward them. Trapped in the asylum's game. Mark backed up, his voice shaky. We need to run. Daniel swallowed. Where? Then, a door appeared. Right in front of them. Lisa didn't hesitate. She grabbed the handle and threw it open. They rushed inside, slamming the door behind them. The footsteps in the hallway stopped. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, knocking. 3 slow knocks. Lisa covered her ears. Don't open it. Mark shook his head. It's not like we have a choice. We're stuck. Daniel scanned the room with his flashlight. It was a patient's room. A rusted bed sat in the corner. A broken mirror hung crookedly on the wall. And on the floor Words had been scratched into the tiles. He makes us forget. Sarah's stomach twisted. What does that mean? Lisa stepped back, shaking. I don't want to know. Then, the door they had just come through was gone. Nowhere left to run. Lisa let out a choked gasp. No. No. It was right here. She ran forward, palming the wall. There was no handle, no sign of an exit. The room had sealed them inside. Mark kicked the wall. This isn't real. This can't be real. Sarah turned to Daniel. You're the one who wanted to record this. What do we do now? Daniel's jaw clenched. He lifted his camera. The screen flickered, distorting. Then, without warning, the broken mirror on the wall let out a horrible, piercing screech. Lisa screamed, covering her ears. The mirror's reflection shifted. In its glass, they could see the room, but not themselves. Instead, in their place stood 4 other figures. Dressed in hospital gowns. Staring back at them. And then, one of the reflections moved. Not in sync with the others. It raised a hand, and waved. Lisa stumbled backward. This isn't happening. Daniel stepped closer, his camera shaking in his grip. The reflection of himself stared right back at him. Then, without warning, it smiled. A wide, unnatural grin stretching too far. Then it whispered, in Daniel's own voice. You've been here before. Something wants them to stay. The lights in the room cut out. For a full 5 seconds, there was nothing but total darkness. Then, a sharp cry. Lisa's voice. The lights flashed back on. Lisa was gone. Sarah spun in circles, panicked. Lisa. Lisa. Mark rushed to the wall, slamming his fists against it. Where did she go? Daniel lifted his camera. The lens was frozen on static. Then, through the distorted screen. For just a second, Lisa appeared. She was standing in the hallway. Alone. Her mouth was moving, whispering something, but no sound came out. Then, the screen cut to black. Daniel's hands trembled. I think we're losing time. Mark grabbed him by the shirt. We're losing Lisa. Sarah backed away from the mirror, shaking. We need to find her. Daniel turned the camera toward the corner of the room. And stopped breathing. There, in the corner, a figure stood facing the wall. Tall. Motionless. Dressed in an old, tattered hospital gown. Its shoulders rose and fell with slow, unnatural breaths. Mark's voice was barely a whisper. Who is that? Daniel slowly raised the flashlight. The moment the light touched the figure, its head snapped toward them. And it smiled. The patient who never left. The moment the figure smiled, the room shifted. The air grew thick, pressing against them like an unseen weight. The walls seemed closer, the ceiling lower. Then, a whisper. You've been here before. Daniel's grip on his camera tightened. What does that mean? The figure took one slow step forward. Lisa was still missing. They had no idea where she was, or if she was even real anymore. Mark's voice was hoarse. What do you want? The figure's head twitched. And then it spoke. He never left. Then, the lights went out again. The lost patient. When the lights flickered back on, the figure was gone. But something else had appeared. A patient file sat in the middle of the room, old and yellowed with time. Daniel hesitated, then picked it up. The cover was faded, but the name was still readable. Patient 126, Ethan Carter. Sarah swallowed. Who is that? Daniel flipped open the file. The first few pages were full of scribbled doctor's notes, strange symbols, and unfinished sentences. But one thing stood out: the discharge section was empty. Lisa leaned over his shoulder. It says, he was committed for severe hallucinations, paranoia, and dissociation from reality. Mark frowned. And? Daniel turned to the last page. There was a handwritten sentence, scratched in deep. The walls shift. The halls change. The doors disappear. He never left. Mark's face went pale. He's still here. The moment the words left his mouth, the room tilted. Reality starts to break. The floor beneath them rippled. The ceiling stretched upward as if the asylum itself was breathing. Sarah staggered back, her vision blurring. For a second, she saw herself standing at the other side of the room, staring back. Then the world snapped back into place. Daniel pressed his hands to his temples. Time, it's slipping. Mark clenched his jaw. We need to find Lisa. Now. Sarah grabbed the patient file. What if Lisa is with him? Daniel's stomach dropped. That's when they heard it, Lisa's voice. It was coming from the hallway. But something was off. Lisa's voice was distorted. Daniel. Sarah, help me. It echoed, stretching unnaturally like a voice from the bottom of a deep well. Sarah's hands shook. That's not her. Mark stepped toward the door. Then where is she? Following the voices. They had no choice. They followed the sound. The hallway had changed again. The walls were narrower, the lights dimmer. The shadows moved on their own. A door at the end of the hall creaked open. Daniel hesitated, then stepped inside. It was another patient's room. But unlike the others, this one was perfectly intact. The bed was neatly made. The walls were clean. A single chair sat in the corner, facing away from them. And in that chair, Lisa. She sat motionless, her back turned. Sarah rushed forward. Lisa. Lisa didn't move. Daniel's stomach knotted. Wait. Sarah grabbed her shoulder and turned her around. Lisa's eyes were wide. Her mouth stretched open, but no sound came out. Her lips moved silently, over and over, as if repeating something. Sarah shook her. Lisa. Wake up. Lisa's lips kept moving. Daniel leaned in closer. And then, in a breathless whisper, he finally heard it. He's watching. The patient is here. A loud bang. The door slammed shut. The air in the room grew heavy, suffocating. Mark backed toward the wall. He's here. Lisa's eyes snapped up. She gasped, as if suddenly able to breathe again. Daniel spun around, his flashlight flickered. And then, in the corner of the room, the chair moved. The figure that had been sitting in it stood up. For the first time, they saw his face. Ethan Carter. Pale skin. Hollow eyes. A twisted grin that stretched too far. His voice was a rasp, echoing in the small room. You don't belong here. Mark rushed for the door. We have to get out. Ethan took a slow step forward. Lisa started to scream. Sarah grabbed her, shaking her. Lisa. Wake up. But Lisa's eyes rolled back. And the room collapsed into darkness. Trapped in the loop. Daniel's eyes snapped open. He was back in the hallway. But something was wrong. Sarah, Mark, and Lisa stood beside him, looking just as confused. Mark whispered, "Did we black out?" Lisa's voice was hoarse. I don't remember leaving the room. Daniel turned, his blood running cold. They were standing right where they started. At the entrance of the asylum. The rusted doors stood slightly open. The hallway stretched out before them, exactly the same as before. Sarah grabbed his arm, her hands ice cold. "Daniel," she whispered. He followed her gaze. On the wall beside them, scratched deep into the peeling paint. And then, the front doors slammed shut. The mind game begins. The moment the doors slammed shut, the air around them shifted. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. Everything looked the same, but something felt wrong. Lisa clutched Sarah's arm. We just got out, right?" Mark turned in slow circles, scanning the endless hallway. His voice was barely a whisper. "No. We didn't. They were right back where they started. At the entrance of Black Hollow Asylum. But this time, the air was colder. The shadows on the walls twitched. And then, the clock on the wall ticked backward. Time is breaking. Daniel checked his watch. 3:42 a.m. He blinked. 3:41 a.m. His stomach dropped. Mark checked his phone. No signal. No Wi-Fi. Nothing. Lisa pointed toward the old reception desk at the far end of the room. "There's a computer. Maybe we can figure out where we are." Daniel hesitated. "Or when we are." Lisa's hands trembled as she tapped the keyboard. The monitor flickered before a login screen appeared. There was only one option.